All right, we're back here in Adobe Illustrator CC 2018, and we are going to be looking at the pen tool. Now, in the last lesson, we looked at the pen tool, and we saw how we could just arbitrarily click around the screen with our pen tool. Just each time we click, it would create a point. And we also saw how that if we held down our Shift key, or if we hold down our Shift key, and we click, we can go and create strictly horizontal and vertical 90-degree angles, or we can go 45 degrees. Okay, so in this lesson, what I want to do is I want to show you how we can do curves. All right, and what I like to do typically is during this demonstration is to turn on my guides. So I'm going to go up to View, and I'm going to go down to first view my rulers. So I'm going to show my rulers, or Command R, and that's going to bring up my rulers here. Okay, your rulers may look different. It depends on whether you're using a dark or a light interface color, or what version you're using of Illustrator. So I'm going to first draw or drag out here. I'm going to drag out a guide from this ruler. Okay. I am working on layer 1 here in my layers panel. Again, your interface will likely look different than mine. I got a lot of extra plugins and features, but really you just need to have that layer panel open and make sure that you have your pen tool selected. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first set up my first point here. So I'm going to click on that line, okay, or relatively on that line, relatively close to that line. It's really just a guide to help us along the way. And then what I want to do is I want to hold down my Shift key. It's not necessary to do this to draw a curve, but I want to hold down my Shift key. Okay? So when I click my next point, I am holding down my mouse, and I'm going to drag with my mouse out. And again, in this version, 2018, we have a guideline. Okay, it's showing us that as we drag out, or as I drag out here, the further I drag out, the further it gets curved, or the more it gets curved. Okay, so let's talk about this for a little bit. All right, I just let go of my mouse, and what I want to do is I want to kind of show you what's going on here. So these little things that I was dragging, they're called handles. Okay, the point in the middle is called an anchor, or it's a point. Okay, but a lot of times it's referred to as an anchor. So the handles and the anchors work together. So what I can do is I can drag these things independent of one another. Okay, I can drag them and change that curve. Okay, there we go, like that. Now you might be wondering, well, what is it doing? What are we doing here? Why is it going around? The other one's staying fixed. Well, that's because if you drag them independently, you get free access to rotation on those. So right now I'm dragging around with my mouse. I've got that selected, and I just created that curve. Okay, so I just clicked off completely, and I am going to now take this direct selection tool up here. It's also A on your keyboard. Okay, and I'm going to select it. So I'm going to select that point right there. Okay, so we have the point that we started with, the point that we made, and this is now the path. It's a curved path. Okay, so again, I can move it independently. I can come back here to my pen tool, and if I hover over and I hold my mouse down, holding down my mouse, it gives me this submenu. And I'm going to go down to what's called the anchor point tool. Now it's also called, or it also can be brought up using Shift and C on your keyboard. But right now I'm just going to use the menu, and I'm going to select the anchor point tool. So I'm going to bring that anchor point tool over, and I'm going to click on this point. And when I click, it straightens it out. It straightens it back out. It has turned this back into a regular corner point. Okay? If I take this tool, again, kind of like what we were doing when we were drawing, if I take this tool, hold down my mouse button, and pull out again, okay? And here I'm freely rotating it. Remember, if you hold down Shift, it can be done in 45-degree increments. I'm freely rotating it right now, okay? It is allowing me to rotate these anchors, or these handles, kind of like a seesaw, if you will, okay? And they're both moving at the same time. When I let go, I can then click on the handle and move that independently. Okay, so we did it here. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to temporarily hold down my Command key or Control key on the keyboard. So Command if you were on the Mac, and Control if you were on a PC. And I'm going to, that allows me to then select one of the other ones. So if I hold down Command, okay, select the center, it allows me to go back over here. Now there are a number of different ways. I'm by no means an expert in this. This is just the way that I have learned it and what I know so far, and it's worked pretty well for me. So there may be shortcuts that could be used otherwise. But again, this is how I've learned, and it works pretty good, or pretty well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on this again. Again, with this, we're in the anchor point tool. I'm just going to click. It's going to straighten it out. And once again, I'm going to hold down my Option key on the Mac, Alt key on the PC, and the Windows. Okay, so Option and drag out, and I'm going to hold down Shift. All right, so we have this really basic curve going on. I know we haven't made it very far here, but I just really wanted you to see how this is made up, or how this curve is made up, okay? So right now, because there's nothing beyond here, we don't really need another anchor handle. It's just showing us what we have. So this right here, a good way to think about it is, pretend that there is an imaginary string connecting this dot here. And if you were to roughly draw out to the outermost curve of this, part of the curve, okay, so it would come up and be right about here, it's pulling away. So watch, when I pull this up, pretend that it's really just kind of pulling an imaginary string connected, again, from here to right about here. And then I'm going to relax it. I'm going to bring it back down. Okay? So that's how you can kind of make those curves. You can tweak these curves. Okay? All right. So we got a basic curve here. So what I want to do, with that in mind, I'm going to delete that. And I am going to go ahead back to my pen tool. All right? So just holding down and going from my anchor point tool back to my pen tool. I'm going to do some quick curve making here. All right, so I'm going to click, got my point. I'm going to hold down my Shift key. I'm going to drag out, and I'm going to click back down to the line here. Again, I have this guideline in this version. Okay, and now I'm going to go below that guideline. I'm going to kind of do the same thing. I'm going to hold down, get 45 degrees here, and I'm going to pull that handle out, still going the same direction. We're going to the right here. I'm going to click. Don't need to do anything on this one because it's really just connecting. It's just a connector. It's not going to be, it is curved, yes, right in here, but it's not going to have handles on it. Okay, I'm going to hold down my Shift key again, got the 45-degree angle, and I'm going to drag in the direction that we're going to the right. And let's do one more. Okay, so I got that, a point. Down below here, going to click, hold down my Shift key, click, and drag out in the direction that we're going, and we'll just finish it right there. Now, if I hit the Escape key on my keyboard, it will get rid of, it'll deselect, In fact, what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to just click off of it, but I'm not going to click with the pen tool. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down my command key, okay, or my control key, and I'm just going to click. And what that does is it essentially deactivates the pen tool so that you're not just continuously or continuing to click around and make points and curves all over the place. Okay, so it just deactivates what you were doing. If you want to pick up where you left off, what I normally do is I hold down that command key again. I select my segment or my path here connected through the points, and I'll be back in my pen tool, and I will click on the end. Now you see that little slash that is next to the pen tool? That little slash just indicates that I can pick up again where I left off. You want to make sure you hover over the point, click, and now we're back in business. There we go. Now you see here I went and I have a angle here, yes, but it's not curved. So just to recap a little bit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to first command, all right, or control click, deselect everything, and then I'm going to go back over here to this anchor point tool again, Shift C, back over, and I'm going to again hold down my command key, click on the point I want to change, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first click, and that's going to straighten everything up again, and then I'm going to hold down my Option key and my Shift key, or my Alt and my Shift key if you're on a PC. And I'm going to go ahead and drag it back out and make it curved. And now because it has handles, and again it's pulling away from this, it's kind of using that magnetic force, if you will. Since it's pulling this away and we have a handle, now we can create a curve. If I drag this back in to where I started, you can see it straightens out again. So think of it almost like a rubber band. This has, it's some tension on it. It's really pulling that away. And that's where we end up. So I know this was a long lesson here to show you how the pen tool works with curves. These curves that we just talked about, they are called Bézier curves. It's after a French math guy. Not sure exactly what he did, but he has the pleasure of now having this tool or these curves named after him here in Adobe Illustrator and other vector programs. It's become the common term. And a lot of other programs, Photoshop and Premiere and a lot of the other applications that you use, they're going to be called the same thing. So Bézier curves.